Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into the mind of philosopher Luciano Floridi to explore a pretty massive shift happening in our world right now. We're going to see exactly why the true challenge of our digital era is no longer about raw technological innovation, but ethical governance. You see, the real game changer today isn't about inventing a faster gadget or a sleeker app. It's entirely about how we govern the ones we already have.
Here is our roadmap for today. We're going to cover 1. Ghosts versus sharks in AI. 2. The logic of enveloping. 3. The pivot to governance. 4. Hard versus soft ethics. And finally 5. The green and blue alliance.
Section 1. Ghosts versus sharks in AI. Okay, let's clear something up right away. We absolutely have to stop fearing the ghosts of conscious, Terminator-style machines taking over the world. Floridi argues that fearing a sentient, rogue AI is basically like fearing a ghost. It's a massive distraction from reality. What we actually need to tackle are the sharks swimming in our waters right now. Things like algorithmic injustice, hidden biases, and the loss of human autonomy. An algorithm unfairly deciding who gets a mortgage? That is a very real shark, and it affects us right now.
And here is why this is happening. The core reality of modern AI is simply this. Machines aren't actually getting smarter. Instead, we have successfully divorced raw problem-solving agency from actual intelligence. Think about it. For all of human history, if you wanted something smart done, you needed a biologically intelligent agent like you or me to do it. But today, machines can execute incredibly complex tasks with literally zero consciousness. Understanding this separation is absolutely crucial.
Floridi puts it brilliantly. He says, the intelligence of our smart technologies is equal to his grandmother's fridge, 0. Sure, your smartphone can completely destroy you at chess, but the whole idea of building a conscious, feeling electronic brain, that's essentially been abandoned for pure engineering. Your phone doesn't feel the thrill of a checkmate. It's literally just crunching math.
To prove it, just look at how machines still fail at basic, everyday context. Take a sentence like, the car didn't fit in the parking space because it was too small. If you ask an AI what too small refers to here, it gets completely confused. Any human child instantly knows the parking space is the thing that's too small, right? Machines lack this contextual common sense because they are just processing data, not experiencing reality.
Moving on to Section 2, the logic of enveloping.
So, if AI is genuinely as dumb as a fridge, why is it so incredibly successful? Well, the secret is a concept called enveloping. We aren't creating brilliant robots that can seamlessly navigate our messy, chaotic human world. Instead, we're actively redesigning our reality, stripping the chaos out of the world so that simple, rigid algorithms can succeed. We are tailoring the environment to be machine-friendly. Think about how a dishwasher works. We didn't invent a mechanical, humanoid robot with hands to stand at your sink and scrub plates with a sponge. I mean, that would be completely inefficient. Instead, we completely changed the environment. We built a closed, 3D envelope, and we just let a blind, dumb algorithm spin hot water and soap inside it. That is exactly how we solve problems with machines today. And we see this enveloping everywhere. A driverless car doesn't dynamically see the world like you do. It completely relies on an enveloped environment of sensors, precise GPS, and smart city data. The same goes for e-commerce algorithms needing our predictable clicking habits. But here's the profound risk. Over time, humanity risks being reduced to a mere interface, constantly forced to adapt to the limitations of our own dumb machines. Because of this intense enveloping, we don't just go online anymore. We live an Onlife existence inside what Floridi calls the Infosphere. Asking someone if they are online today is kind of like asking a river if its water is salty or sweet, right at the exact spot it meets the ocean. It's all mixed together. The digital is permanently baked into the analog fabric of our cities, our homes, and our lives.
Which brings us to Section 3, the pivot to governance. Power has always evolved. In the 19th century, power was all about controlling land and physical resources. In the 20th century, it was about controlling energy and oil. But today? True authority lies with those who control data, questions, and uncertainty within the infosphere. If you control a major search engine, you aren't just giving people answers. You are literally framing how millions of humans understand reality itself. Listen, this means the big challenge today isn't just funding the next shiny startup or inventing a slightly thinner laptop. The real challenge is the governance of how we actually deploy these massive tools. Relentless innovation without governance is basically just the engine of a car. It gives you momentum, sure, but without a steering wheel and a map, you're just driving incredibly fast in the pitch dark.
So how do we steer? We have to build infra-ethics. This is the social infrastructure, where the default design of our digital world naturally nudges us toward positive outcomes. It's like building a road network. You don't just cross your fingers and hope people drive safely, right? You build lanes, install traffic lights, and design intersections that make coordination easy and crashes hard. We need that exact same infrastructure for our digital world.
Section 4. Hard versus soft ethics.
Now, when we govern this algorithmic society, we absolutely must look beyond mere legal compliance. Floridi calls compliance hard ethics. These are the rules of the game. Respecting human rights, complying with privacy laws, that kind of thing. But stopping there is like a football team deciding that their entire strategy for winning is just don't commit any fouls. To actually win to benefit society, we need soft ethics, which tells us how to play the game well.
Because ultimately, ethics is what an organization does above and beyond the law. A tech company might legally have the right to scrape your data, but soft ethics forces them to ask, does doing this actually improve the human condition, or are we just exploiting a vulnerability? Soft ethics is where companies build genuine trust and actively choose to design products that are socially good.
So what does this look like in practice? It comes down to 5 core principles for AI. Beneficence, doing good. Non-maleficence, avoiding harm. Autonomy, protecting our choices. Justice, ensuring fairness. And explicability, keeping things transparent. By sticking to these, we can prevent future Cambridge Analytica scandals and ensure that you and I are never reduced to just being data points in an algorithm's envelope.
Let's look at where this is all heading in Section 5, the Green and Blue Alliance.
Floridi uses this really beautiful analogy of a mangrove forest. Just like mangroves thrive exactly where the sweet river water meets the salty seawater, our future totally depends on a hybrid environment. We need environmental sustainability and social care, the green, to completely seamlessly intersect with our digital tech, the blue. We can't treat the digital world and the natural world as 2 separate problems anymore.
We literally have to unite them. We must take the immense problem-solving agency of our algorithms, all that processing power of the blue, and explicitly point it at our biggest climate and social crises, the green. Technology has to serve humanity and the planet, not the other way around. This alliance is really the only viable path forward for us as a mature information society.
So I want to leave you with a question to really chew on. If our physical world is rapidly becoming an envelope perfectly designed for algorithms, what exactly is the human project for our digital future? We aren't the only agents solving problems anymore, but we are absolutely the only ones capable of moral responsibility. The future isn't something that just happens to us, it's a project we have to actively design. Thanks so much for joining this explainer, and I hope it gives you a fresh, powerful new lens for viewing our digital reality.
So back in 2019, a judge in a Philadelphia courtroom was looking at this human being who was waiting for sentencing.
Right.
And the judge basically decided to, defer the decision to a black box.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like a movie plot, but it wasn't.
No, exactly. It wasn't some sci-fi movie. It was a real, actual courtroom.
Yeah.
And the judge was utilizing this proprietary algorithm designed to predict the likelihood that this specific defendant would, commit another crime in the future.
Which is just, it's wild to think about.
It is. So the system just absorbs like a few dozen data points and spits out a risk score.
Right.
And the thing is, the algorithm had precisely 0 intelligence, 0 empathy, and absolutely no semantic understanding of what a human life even is. I mean, it didn't know what a prison was
or what it means to actually lose years of your life behind bars.
Exactly. And the truly terrifying part, I think, isn't that this was some rare glitch in the system. The terrifying part is that this is exactly how our societal infrastructure is currently being redesigned to function.
Yeah, it really is a profound delegation of human moral responsibility to basically mathematical equations.
Yeah.
And we're seeing it everywhere now. I mean, from criminal justice, like you said, to, who gets a mortgage, to who gets called in for a job interview.
Right. It's everywhere.
We are essentially outsourcing the architecture of our society to systems that are highly effective at executing tasks, but fundamentally devoid of any actual comprehension.
Which is exactly the reality we are diving into today. So if you are joining us, our mission for this deep dive is to completely reconstruct how you view our digital future.
Yeah, it's a big shift in perspective.
It really is. We're looking at things through the lens of the philosopher Luciano Floridi. We've got this enormous stack of his lectures, his briefings on digital ethics, his foundational research.
And the primary goal here really is to get away from talking about the future as if it's, Hollywood blockbuster.
Oh, please, yes, I am so tired of the Terminator talk.
Right. I mean, we really have to move past this exhausted, distracting debate of whether AI is going to become sentient and declare war on humanity.
Because while we are staring at the sky, waiting for the Terminators to drop down, the actual foundation of our daily lives is being rewritten right under our feet.
Exactly. We have crossed into a mature information society, and raw technological innovation, well, it's just no longer the real game changer.
Right.
The actual challenge of our lifetime, the thing we really need to focus on, is the governance of the digital world.
Governance. Okay, so to really grasp the magnitude of that shift toward governance, we first need to accurately define the actual environment we're currently sitting in.
Right, we have to set the stage.
Yeah, and Flaherty argues that we are living in an on-life existence within the Infosphere.
Which I know, those sound like very academic buzzwords.
They totally do.
But they describe a very tangible, physical reality that, every listener is experiencing right this second.
So let's break those down. Because the way we used to talk about the internet, it always implied, like, a destination.
Yeah, going to a place.
Right, exactly. Like, 10 or 15 years ago, you would physically sit down at a desktop computer, you'd wait for that awful dial-up modem sound to connect, and you would, quote-unquote, go online.
Right, it was a binary state. You were either online or you were offline.
Yes, but today, the boundaries between our analog physical reality and our digital reality have essentially evaporated.
Have completely dissolved. You don't really log on to the internet anymore because the environment you inhabit is already completely saturated with it.
It's everywhere.
Yeah, it's digital connectivity, sensors, data streams. Just think about a modern smart home or, just walking down a city street with a smartphone in your pocket.
Or smartwatch on your wrist.
Exactly. You're passing digital billboards, traffic cameras connected to cloud analytics. You are moving through an environment that is seamlessly physical and digital at the exact same time.
And that environment, that seamless blend, that is what Flaherty calls the infosphere.
That's the infosphere. Yep.
Okay, so my state of being within that environment, that is my on-life.
Exactly.
It's basically the realization that my physical actions, like buying groceries, driving a car, having a conversation near my phone, those things are instantly translated into digital data,
Right.
which is then processed, and then it feeds right back into my physical reality.
Right.
Like by altering what advertisements I see on a billboard,
Yeah.
or how my navigation app routes me through traffic.
And that feedback loop is continuous. It never stops. And recognizing that we live inside this infosphere is so crucial because it sets up what Flaherty identifies as the fourth revolution in human self-understanding.
Oh, this part is fascinating.
Yeah, it is. Because to manage this new digital reality, we have to understand how it has fundamentally altered our view of ourselves as a species.
So if this is the fourth revolution, we should probably map out the first three, just to give the listener some context. Because history is basically just a long process of human beings getting knocked off our pedestal, isn't it?
It really is. It's just a series of profound decenterings. So the first revolution was Copernican.
Okay, Copernicus.
Right. For most of human history, we looked up at the sky and firmly believed the Earth was the fixed, immovable center of the universe.
Naturally, feels that way.
Right. And we thought the sun and the stars revolved around us. But Nicholas Copernicus shattered that illusion. He proved we are not at the center of the universe. We are just on a rock orbiting a peripheral star.
So boom, we lost our cosmological centrality. We're not the center of space.
Exactly. Then comes the second revolution with Charles Darwin.
Biology.
Yeah. Before Darwin, humans viewed themselves as, entirely separate from and totally superior to the animal kingdom, like a special creation placed above nature. But Darwin's theory of evolution demonstrated that we are not the center of the biological kingdom. We're part of a continuous, unbroken chain of biological evolution. We are animals.
So there goes our biological centrality. We are just like another branch on the evolutionary tree.
Right. And then the third revolution arrives with Sigmund Freud and the development of psychoanalysis.
Okay, so this is about the mind.
Yes, because even if we accepted that we weren't the center of the universe or the center of biology, we at least thought we were the absolute masters of our own mind.
Right, we thought we were totally rational.
Exactly. We believed human consciousness was completely transparent to itself. But Freud introduced the concept of the vast, opaque unconscious.
The idea that there's stuff going on in there that we don't even know about.
Right. He showed us that we are driven by impulses, biases, and repressed desires that we don't even consciously understand. We aren't even the center of our own mental space.
So we lost our psychological centrality. Which brings us finally to the present moment, the fourth revolution.
Right. So following the foundational work of Alan Turing and the birth of computer science, we are experiencing this fourth revolution. Because for millennia, even after Copernicus, Darwin, and Freud, humans held on to one final claim of uniqueness.
What was that?
Well, we believed we were the only entities in the known universe capable of high-level logical reasoning, processing complex information, and successfully solving problems.
Ah, I see.
We were at the center of the world of information and agency. But Turing proved that logical computation is substrate independent.
Substrate independent, meaning it doesn't need to be biological.
Exactly. You don't need a biological, squishy brain to process information or solve complex problems.
Right. A silicon chip can execute logical operations just as effectively, if not more so.
And so, we have been decentered once again. We are no longer the unique, solitary agents of information processing in the universe. We share the Infosphere with machines that can execute tasks with astonishing success.
We're not the only game in town anymore when it comes to agency.
No, we aren't.
And I think this is where we hit the most critical distinction in Floridy's entire philosophy. And honestly, it's something that fundamentally changes how you view every piece of technology you interact with.
It really is the core of it all.
We have to talk about the absolute divorce between agency and intelligence. Because when you say the word agency, I think the average person instantly conflates that with intelligence.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, if I see a machine playing a brilliant game of chess, my immediate human instinct is to assume the machine is, like, thinking about chess.
And that assumption is the core cognitive error of our time. It really is.
Wow, the core error.
Yeah, and it's an error born out of our own evolutionary history. Think about it. For thousands of years, if you encountered an entity that could successfully navigate a complex environment or solve a puzzle or translate a language, well, that entity had to be another human being.
Right, there are no other options.
Exactly. Therefore, high-level success in performing a task, which is what agency is, was inextricably linked to conscious thought, semantic understanding, and intelligence.
There were basically two sides of the same coin. If you could do the complex math, you understood the complex math.
But the digital revolution has violently severed that link. Modern artificial intelligence represents a complete, unprecedented divorce of agency from intelligence.
A divorce of agency from intelligence.
Yes. We have engineered this vast, rapidly expanding reservoir of quote-unquote smart agency that is completely and utterly mindless.
Okay, I think we really need to define the mechanics of this just so the listener can really visualize it. Let's use the analogy of an autopilot on a commercial airliner.
Oh, that's a perfect example.
So a Boeing 777 can fly flawlessly from New York to London. It can adjust the throttle, navigate the jet stream, compensate for crosswinds, and even land on a runway in zero visibility fog.
Which is incredible, highly successful agency.
It is. It solves a massive physical and mathematical problem. But the computer flying the plane has no concept of sky. It doesn't know it is flying. It doesn't feel the turbulence or, fear crashing. It is merely balancing a continuous stream of mathematical equations based on voltage inputs from pitot-tubes and sensors. It is processing syntax, not semantics.
That is the exact distinction. Syntax versus semantics. AI systems, large language models, predictive algorithms, they are syntactic engines.
Syntactic engines, okay.
Yeah, they process patterns, calculate probabilities, and adjust statistical weights in a massive neural network. If you ask a translation app to turn English into Mandarin, it is not understanding the poem you just typed into it.
Right, it's not crying over the beauty of the word.
Exactly. It's not experiencing the emotion. It is performing a highly complex mathematical operation, mapping patterns of tokens to other patterns of tokens based on billions of prior examples.
So it has the exact same amount of true intelligence, consciousness, and intersubjective experience as my kitchen refrigerator.
Zero.
Zero. Absolutely none. And this brings us right to Floridy's critique of the singularity.
Ah, the singularity. Yeah, which is this deeply ingrained science fiction narrative that machines are going to cross some magical threshold of processing power and suddenly wake up, become sentient, and decide to eradicate humanity.
Right. The whole Skynet scenario.
Exactly. Floridi calls this the AI illusion.
Yeah. He uses a fantastic metaphor for this. He says that Worrying about an AI superintelligence waking up and taking over the world is like swimming in an ocean full of real dangerous sharks, but you're too busy panicking about ghosts.
Yes, the singularity is the ghost. It's a phantom. It is a fundamental philosophical category error.
How so?
Well, the people predicting a sentient AI takeover are looking at the rapid increase in machine agency, the ability to perform tasks, and they're falsely assuming that intelligence and consciousness must be secretly growing alongside it, just waiting to reach a boiling point.
But they're divorced.
Exactly. Multiplying zero intelligence by 1 trillion calculations per second still equals zero intelligence.
But, the pushback you always hear from the tech industry, or at least the very vocal people on social media, is the argument of exponential growth.
Sure.
People will look at Moore's law or the parameter counts of the latest language models and say, look, the graph is a hockey stick. It's going straight up. It's getting smarter exponentially every single day. So a conscious superintelligence is just mathematically inevitable.
How does Flaherty dismantle that specific mathematical argument?
He dismantles it by pointing out that proponents of the singularity are applying the wrong mathematical model to physical reality.
Okay.
And to illustrate this, Flaherty borrows a brilliant concept from the philosopher Bertrand Russell, the turkey analogy.
Oh, this perfectly captures the flaw in inductive reasoning. I love this one.
It really does. So imagine a turkey living on a farm. From the very first day of its life, the turkey observes a consistent pattern.
Right.
Every single morning, the farmer walks out to the pen and provides a generous scoop of grain. The turkey's weight increases. Its comfort increases. The data set is absolutely flawless. It's got the charts to prove it.
Exactly. The turkey, acting as a data scientist, plots this on a graph. The line curves upward. If the turkey extrapolates that data exponentially, it must logically conclude that the farmer's generosity will increase forever, and the turkey will eventually grow to the size of a house and live in eternal, infinite luxury.
Right. The data supports the trend perfectly, right up until the Thursday in November.
Until Thanksgiving arrives, yes.
Yeah.
A sudden, catastrophic reality check occurs that simply wasn't in the historical data.
Wow.
The point Flaherty's making here is that technology in the physical analog world does not follow infinite exponential growth curves. It follows logistic curves, also known as S-curves.
So it's like starts slow, accelerates rapidly in the middle, which I guess feels like exponential growth when you're living through it. But then it inevitably hits physical, economic, or thermodynamic limits, and it plateaus.
That's it exactly. Every technology in human history follows the S-curve. Look at commercial aviation.
Okay.
In 1903, the Wright brothers flew a few hundred feet. By 1969, we built the Concorde, flying at Mach 2.
That's a massive leap.
It is. And if you plotted that progress exponentially, you would assume we'd be flying commercial jets at Mach 20 by the year 2000.
Right, we'd be teleporting by now.
Exactly. But instead, the physics of aerodynamics, fuel efficiency, and just the sheer economics of commercial travel forced a plateau. We fly at the exact same speeds today as we did in the 1970s.
That is so true. I never thought about it like that.
Computing power and AI capabilities are bound by very similar physical constraints. Energy consumption, heat dissipation, and the eventual exhaustion of high-quality training data.
It's kind of like looking at human life expectancy, right?
Oh, yeah, good example.
Like over a few centuries, advancements in sanitation and antibiotics pushed the average life expectancy from roughly 35 years to about 80 years. That's a massive, rapid upward trend.
Definitely.
But if you extrapolate that exponentially, you would argue that humans born in the year 2050 are guaranteed to live to be 500 years old. It completely ignores the biological plateau of the human organism. We hit an S-curve.
Precisely. And, when you point out these physical plateaus to the singularity believers, their final defense is usually an appeal to pure logic.
What do you get?
They will say, well, you can't prove that a machine waking up is physically impossible. The brain is just a biological computer, so it is logically possible that a silicon computer could become conscious.
Ah, the classic you never know defense. Like, it's theoretically possible, therefore we must treat it as an imminent, guaranteed threat.
Right. And to address this, Flaherty introduces what he calls the Nigerian scam analogy.
I found this deeply funny, but incredibly effective.
It really highlights the difference between logical possibility and empirical plausibility.
Right.
So, is it logically possible that a long-lost royal relative in Nigeria has discovered your email address and actually does need to wire you $10 million, and all they need is a small processing fee from you to release the funds?
I mean, it does not violate the laws of physics. It is a state of affairs that could, in some possible universe, exist.
Exactly. But just because something is a logical possibility does not mean it is plausible. And more importantly, it absolutely does not mean you should empty your bank account and wire your life savings to a stranger.
Right.
In the exact same way, the logical possibility of a sentient Terminator AI should not dictate our society's public policy, our ethical frameworks, or our investment of massive resources. We cannot base digital governance on a science fiction ghost just because it doesn't violate the laws of physics.
Okay, so if I'm the listener and I've accepted that the singularity is a ghost, right? And I accept that modern AI has zero actual intelligence and is just this highly capable statistical engine, I have to ask a massive glaring question here.
Go for it.
If these algorithms are so incredibly mindless, how are they functioning so flawlessly in our highly complex, chaotic world? Like, how does a zero-intelligence system navigate a bustling city street or instantly curate a perfect feed of videos to keep me addicted for hours? How does the dumb machine win?
That is the essential question. That unlocks everything else we need to talk about. The answer is not that the machines are getting smarter or that they are learning to understand the chaotic human world. The answer is that we are physically, socially, and architecturally changing the world to make it easier for the machines.
Wow. We're changing the world for them.
Yes, we are lowering the complexity of reality so that mindless agency can succeed. And this brings us to what I think is Floridi's most profound concept, enveloping.
Enveloping. Yeah, when I read this part of the research, it completely flipped how I view the infrastructure around me. It explains so much about modern society.
To understand enveloping, we really have to look at its roots in mechanical engineering and industrial robotics.
Oh,
In robotics, an envelope is a highly constrained three-dimensional space that is designed specifically and exclusively for a robot to operate successfully.
Right, and Florida used the definitive example of the dishwasher. And we really need to dissect the physics of this because it's so revealing.
Please do.
So, before the dishwasher, washing dirty plates was a complex human task. You have to judge the fragility of a wine glass versus a cast iron skillet. You have to scrub dried food, visually inspect it, and, adapt your hand movements to the shape of every single dish.
It's a very high complexity environment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if humanity had tried to build a robot that adapted to that chaotic environment of a human kitchen, like a humanoid robot with artificial hands standing at the sink holding a sponge, we would still be waiting for clean dishes.
Oh, absolutely. The complexity of spatial awareness and tactile feedback required to do that is just astronomical.
So we didn't adapt the machine to the environment.
Mm-hmm.
We fundamentally changed the environment. We built a customized, sealed metal box. We created an envelope.
Right.
We take the dishes out of our chaotic human world. We arrange them into highly rigid, mathematically spaced geometric racks. We close the door, and then a totally dumb machine just spins a fan, spraying high-pressure scalding water and chemical solvents blindly in the dark.
Blindly. It has no idea what it's doing.
The machine doesn't know what a plate is. It just executes a mechanical loop inside an environment optimized for that loop, and it works perfectly.
Exactly. The dishwasher is a microenvelope. But the critical shift in the information society, the reason we are having this entire conversation today, is that we are no longer just building standalone envelopes in our kitchens or on factory assembly lines.
Just scaling it.
We are scaling the logic of the dishwasher up to encompass the entire globe. We are enveloping the infosphere itself. We are systematically transforming human habitats into machine-friendly envelopes.
Let's look at how this is manifesting right now in the real world. Think about modern logistics and e-commerce. Like if you look inside a massive Amazon fulfillment center, it is not designed for a human being to walk through with a shopping cart.
Not at all.
The architecture is entirely alien to human ergonomics. It is a vast, multi-story grid of barcodes, QR codes pasted on perfectly flat concrete floors, and standardized shelving units. It is an environment built strictly so that swarms of Kiva robots can glide along mathematical coordinates at high speeds.
The environment is the envelope.
Yes, and the human being in that scenario is literally stationed at the very edge of the envelope, acting merely as the interface, the biological mechanism that just reaches into the robot's world to grab the item and put it in a cardboard box.
And we are doing the exact same thing to our public spaces with smart cities. I mean, there's a massive push for autonomous vehicles, right?
Yeah, self-driving cars everywhere.
But autonomous cars relying on purely mindless visual processing and machine learning, they really struggle with the chaotic reality of a human city. Pedestrians jaywalking, faded paint on a wet road, complex eye contact at a four-way stop.
So how do we solve it? We don't wait for the cars to magically get human-level semantic understanding. We redesign the city.
Exactly.
We install LiDAR-readable sensors directly into the asphalt. We create dedicated geofenced lanes where human drivers are banned entirely. We standardize visual markers and street signs to be strictly machine-readable. We implement vehicle-to-everything, or V2X communication grids, so the traffic lights broadcast their state directly to the car's computer.
Right. We are smoothing out the chaotic analog edges of reality so that algorithms don't get confused.
Which brings us back to the concept of Onlife.
Yeah.
And a really beautiful metaphor Florida uses to describe our current state. The mangrove.
Yes, the mangroves, they're fascinating ecosystems. They live in estuarine environments, brackish water. It's where the sweet, fresh water of inland rivers meets the salty water of the ocean.
Right.
And if you look at a mangrove forest, you cannot meaningfully ask, is this a freshwater plant or a saltwater plant? It has evolved to thrive in a hybrid reality.
And humanity is now living like mangroves.
Exactly. The analog world is the sweet water, the digital world is the salty water. We are living in the brackish water of the Onlife, where physical environments are deeply infused with these digital envelopes.
This raises a massive, almost existential problem, doesn't it?
It does.
Like, what happens to human flourishing when the physical and social structures around us are optimized for the convenience of algorithms rather than the psychological and biological needs of human beings?
This is the danger of unchecked enveloping. If we design a city where the primary goal is ensuring autonomous vehicles can operate without friction, we might end up removing sidewalks, banning bicycles, and restricting human movement to highly controlled overpasses.
Right, because humans are too unpredictable for the machine.
Exactly. In the pursuit of algorithmic efficiency, humans run the very real risk of becoming mere interfaces between environments.
We become the people whose only purpose is to load the dishwasher of society.
Yeah.
We gather the messy data of human life and input it into the rigid structure of the envelope. I mean, do we just become the cargo in the smart city? Do we become just another stream of telemetry data feeding the system?
That is a chilling reality of living inside an envelope. The algorithms aren't adapting to our needs. They are silently demanding that we adapt our behavior to their parameters.
Wow.
And once you realize that we are trapped inside an architecture designed for zero intelligence systems, you have to look at what those systems are actually doing to us.
Which means it is time to stop talking about the ghost of the singularity and start talking about the actual sharks swimming in this brackish water with us.
Yes, the real threats.
Because if the machines aren't going to launch nuclear missiles, what are the real systemic risks of living in an algorithmic society?
Well, Floridi identifies several massive risks, and they are immediate, they're pervasive, and they do not require the AI to be conscious to inflict devastating societal harm.
Okay, let's go through them.
The first major shark is the loss of human autonomy through constant algorithmic nudging.
Okay, and when we say nudging, we aren't talking about like a robot holding a gun to your head forcing you to buy something. We are talking about something much more subtle and, honestly, more insidious.
Definitely. To understand the power of nudging, we have to respect the asymmetry between humans and machines.
Okay.
Human beings get tired, we have decision fatigue, we need to sleep. AI systems are relentless. They are 247 agents with infinite patience and unlimited computational resources. And Floridi compares this dynamic to a drop of water wearing away a stone.
Which is such a great image. Because a single drop of water hitting a rock does absolutely nothing. You wouldn't even notice it.
But imagine a drop of water falling on the exact same millimeter of stone relentlessly every 3 seconds for 18 years.
They'll carve a deep, permanent groove right through solid rock.
Exactly. Now map that onto human psychology. Imagine a child born today. From the moment they can hold a tablet, for the next 18 years, their environment gently, continuously nudges them.
Right, the recommender systems on YouTube, the algorithmic feeds on TikTok, the programmatic advertising on every single website.
Watch this video next. People who bought this also bought this. Here is a news article that perfectly aligns with your existing biases.
It operates on the level of microdopamine hits. I mean, the algorithm runs continuous A/B testing on your psychology. It learns what color button you are most likely to click, what, emotional cadence in a headline makes you angry enough to share it.
Exactly.
It isn't a violent takeover of your free will. It is a gentle, continuous, mathematically optimized shaping of your behavior.
And the goal of the system is to create a predictable consumer. And the thing is, it works. Slowly, over years, your tastes, your political affiliations, your worldview, and your purchasing habits are carved out by that steady dripping water.
Right.
This is a direct erosion of human autonomy. If your environment is perfectly tailored to feed you exactly what you want to hear, you never have to exercise the cognitive muscle required to encounter friction, or disagree respectfully, or independently seek out new information.
You just surrender your decision-making to the personalized feed.
The algorithm is the water, and our autonomy is the stone.
That's haunting. And that leads directly into the second shark, which is honestly even more structurally dangerous to society. Algorithmic injustice. We touched on this in the opening of the show with the Philadelphia courtroom.
Right. We are increasingly delegating profound moral, legal, and economic choices to black box systems.
And we are doing it under the false assumption that because a computer's doing the math, the outcome must be objective and, free from human bias.
But the math is entirely dependent on the data it's trained on. Let's look closely at how a predictive policing or sentencing algorithm actually functions.
Okay.
It looks at historical data to find patterns. It looks at arrest records, zip codes, education levels, income.
But historical data is not an objective reflection of natural law. I mean, historical data is a frozen record of centuries of human prejudice, systemic redlining, and highly biased policing practices.
Exactly. If you train an algorithm on 50 years of data where certain minority neighborhoods were over-policed for minor drug offenses compared to affluent neighborhoods, the algorithm, which remember has zero semantic understanding of racism, will simply correlate that zip code with high crime risk.
Because it is a syntactic engine. It just says zip code X equals high probability of variable Y.
And then it spits out a risk score. And when a judge looks at that score, or a bank looks at a loan denial from an algorithm, they often defer to it because it carries the veneer of mathematical authority.
Right.
We are enveloping the justice system and the financial system to make them machine-friendly. But in doing so, we are laundering historical prejudices through complex mathematics.
We take human bias, encode it in Python, and suddenly it's treated as empirical truth. We are delegating the agonizing, inherently human burden of moral judgment to a spreadsheet that cannot explain its reasoning, cannot feel mercy, and cannot comprehend rehabilitation.
It's terrifying. And the third shark operates on a macroeconomic scale. It is the shifting job market and the creation of structural unemployability.
Now, the classical fear here is the robot walking into the auto plant and physically taking the welder's job one-to-one, right? Like a physical replacement. But Flaherty argues the reality is much more nuanced and systemic.
It is. It has everything to do with cognitive demands and the sociology of the Gaussian curve, or the bell curve.
The bell curve.
Right. Across human populations, the distribution of general capability, IQ, and cognitive flexibility naturally forms a bell curve. The vast majority of people sit right in the middle average capabilities. We are essentially the exact same biological hardware that we were 10,000 years ago.
Right. Our brains haven't gotten a software upgrade.
But the environment around us, the infosphere, is rapidly increasing its complexity. Historically, during the industrial age, if you were right in the middle of that bell curve, you could easily secure a stable, routine job that provided a solid middle-class life.
Sure. You could work on an assembly line, do basic bookkeeping, manage a warehouse. The environment matched the average human capability.
But the Onlife environment changes the baseline entirely. The algorithms are phenomenal at automating routine, predictable, and even moderately complex syntactic tasks.
Right.
Therefore, the minimum required skill level to secure meaningful, well-paying employment in the information society is being pushed further and further to the right side of the bell curve.
Oh, I see.
To thrive now, the environment demands high-level cognitive flexibility, advanced technical literacy, complex interpersonal negotiation skills, and continuous adaptability.
Let's use a very concrete example for this.
Yeah.
Applicant tracking systems, or ATS. If you apply for a job online today, your resume rarely goes to a human resources manager first.
No, it goes straight to the machine.
Right. It goes into an algorithmic envelope. The ATS system scans your resume for specific keywords, formatting, and semantic density. If your resume doesn't perfectly match the syntactic parameters the algorithm is looking for, you are instantly filtered out.
Exactly. A human recruiter might have looked at your work history and understood the semantic context. They might see a potential loyalty or lateral skills that transfer over.
But the algorithm just sees a lack of a specific keyword string.
And this dynamic creates a massive societal divide. It risks rendering large swaths of the population functionally unemployable, not because they are lazy and not because they are incapable of hard work, but because the specific, highly demanding envelope of the modern digital economy has simply designed them out of the equation.
That is incredibly stark.
Yeah.
So the danger isn't a sci-fi apocalypse. The danger is a society where a large portion of our neighbors are quietly deemed obsolete by an automated filter, while the rest of us are gently nudged by algorithms into buying consumer goods we don't need, all while the justice system runs on biased autopilot.
It is a grim reality if left unchecked. But Flaherty points out a fourth shark, and this one is fascinating because it's the exact opposite of what we usually fear. He calls it the opportunity cost, or the amber light on the traffic signal of progress.
The danger of underusing AI.
Precisely. Because society is so distracted by the ghosts, the existential fear of sentient machines or the panic over job losses, we might become paralyzed by caution. We might adopt a blanket better safe than sorry approach and heavily overregulate or ban AI deployments.
But wait, why is that a shark? Isn't extreme caution a good thing when dealing with this stuff?
Extreme caution becomes deeply unethical when it prevents us from using a powerful tool to alleviate massive human suffering. If we are terrified of the ghost, we might stop deploying non-intelligent AI where its syntactic agency is desperately needed.
Like in national healthcare grids.
Consider the capabilities of predictive algorithms in medicine. A human doctor can read maybe a few thousand medical papers in their lifetime and analyze a few MRI scans a day.
Right.
An AI system can analyze a data set of 10 million MRI scans in an afternoon, cross-reference them with global genomic data, and identify microscopic patterns of early-stage pancreatic cancer that a human eye would never catch. It can optimize hospital resource allocation during a pandemic so that ventilators are distributed flawlessly. It can model climate change variables to optimize global agriculture and prevent famine.
So if we let science fiction fears or regulatory paralysis stop us from deploying these algorithms in healthcare and climate science, we are actively choosing not to save lives. We're leaving the cure on the table.
Exactly.
That opportunity cost is a massive moral failure.
So we are caught in a very delicate balance here. We face the massive risks of nudging, injustice, and economic divide, but we also face the tragic cost of failing to utilize the technology for good. We can't unplug the machines, we can't drain the infosphere and go back to an analog world. We are already living the Onlife.
Which brings us to the ultimate pivot of Flaherty's work. If we are surrounded by real sharks, but we also desperately need the submarine to cross the ocean, what do? We need a completely new framework for managing this environment.
We do.
We have to realize that the era of raw technological innovation is no longer the main event.
It isn't. The bottleneck for humanity is no longer our ability to invent new code. I mean, if a massive tech conglomerate decides they need a new generative video capability or a new quantum computing architecture, they don't even have to invent it from scratch anymore.
Right, they just buy somebody.
The raw power to innovate is abundant. They just buy a startup that has already built it. The true monumental challenge of the 21st century is the governance of the digital world.
I really want to dig into governance deeply. Because to govern the infosphere, we have to understand how power actually functions within it. Flaherty writes extensively about the morphology of power.
Yes, this is a crucial concept.
Historically, going back centuries, power was very physical. It was based on controlling scarcity. If you controlled the gold mines, the arable land, the trade routes, or the oil fields, you controlled society.
Scarcity was the fulcrum of power. If I have the resource and you need it, I have power over you. But in a mature information society, the core resource, which is data, is not scarce. It is infinitely abundant and practically free to reproduce. So the morphology of power has shifted. It is no longer just about controlling scarce resources. It is about controlling uncertainty.
Controlling uncertainty.
Yeah.
Let's really analyze what that means in practice. I think the best way to visualize this is to look at a search engine, right?
A search engine is the ultimate engine of power in the infosphere. Think about what happens when you type a query into a search bar. You are experiencing a moment of epistemic uncertainty.
Right. You have a question. You don't know the answer.
By typing that question, you are explicitly expressing your uncertainty to the algorithm.
And the algorithm replies with 10 blue links on the first page.
The entity that designs the algorithm deciding which 10 links appear on that first page, and crucially, which millions of links are buried on page 50 where no human will ever look, is actively managing your uncertainty. It is structuring your epistemology. It is defining the boundaries of what you can quickly know, what sources are deemed authoritative, and ultimately what you will perceive as the objective truth in that exact moment.
So the platform isn't just a neutral public library passively holding books on a shelf.
Not at all.
It is an active, aggressive gatekeeper shaping the reality we are allowed to perceive. If you control the answers to the questions society is asking, you control society. That is an unprecedented level of power held by a handful of private corporations.
And that is exactly why governance is so critical. We cannot allow the control of societal uncertainty to be dictated solely by the profit motives of tech companies. But when we talk about governance, Fluharty makes a very vital distinction between different layers of ethics. He breaks this down into hard ethics and soft ethics.
Hard ethics is the foundation. It's
Yeah.
the baseline. We were talking about the law, right?
Yes. Hard ethics encompasses legal compliance, regulatory frameworks, legislative constraints, and fundamental human rights. It is the absolute minimum standard of behavior expected in a society. If a company is stealing user data in violation of a privacy statute or deploying an algorithm that violates civil rights laws, they are failing at hard ethics.
But if we rely solely on hard ethics to govern the infosphere, we run into a massive structural problem. The speed of legislation versus the speed of computation. I mean, the law is inherently structurally reactive. It operates on a timeline of years.
Exactly. Think about the process. By the time a societal harm occurs, the public gets outraged, a legislative committee holds hearings, a bill is drafted, debated, amended, passed into law, and finally enforced by courts. 5 or 10 years might have passed.
And in those 10 years, the technology hasn't stood still. By the time Congress passes a law regulating the privacy of social media data, the tech industry has already moved on to biometric facial recognition or generative AI or neurotechnology.
The law arrives to referee a game that is no longer being played.
The law is always playing catch-up, which means that for the vast majority of the time, the creators of digital technology are operating in a legislative void. They're operating in the gray areas where the law is silent, outdated, or fundamentally inadequate. And this is where soft ethics becomes the most important concept in digital governance.
If the law is too slow, then companies and developers are essentially forced to police themselves. They have to make moral decisions without a legal textbook telling them what to do. Soft ethics is what happens in that gray area.
So Fluharty defines soft ethics as post-compliance.
Yes. It is the ethical framework that an organization, a state, or a society chooses to adopt above and beyond what the law strictly requires. It is about anticipating consequences, baiting trust, and proactively designing technology to achieve socially preferable outcomes, rather than just waiting to see if you get sued.
Fluharty uses a sports analogy here that really clarifies the relationship between the two. Think of hard ethics, the law, as the painted boundary lines on a football pitch. The law tells you what is strictly out of bounds. It defines the absolute limits of the playing field.
But just knowing where the out-of-bounds lines are does not mean you know how to play a beautiful game of football.
Right.
Soft ethics is the strategy. It is the sportsmanship, the teamwork, the tactics that make the game worth playing. A tech company that only cares about hard ethics is like a team that spends the entire game just trying not to step out of bounds. They might not get penalized, but they aren't adding value to the sport.
Let's apply this to a real-world scenario to see how soft ethics functions. Let's go back to the algorithm that denies you a mortgage loan. The algorithm looks at your digital footprint, your Onlife data, and issues a rejection. The law, the hard ethics in many jurisdictions, might only require the bank to formally notify you that you were denied based on a credit algorithm. They are legally compliant just by sending an automated email. The law might not explicitly demand that they explain the insanely complex, multi-layered neural network mathematics of why the model weighted your data the way it did.
And that is the gray area. A company practicing soft ethics steps into that void and says, look, even if it is not strictly mandated by the current law, we recognize that denying a human being a home is a profound action. Therefore, we have a moral obligation to engineer our AI systems to be explainable.
Right.
We will invest the extra resources to provide this customer with a clear, understandable, human-readable reason for this denial, because that respects human dignity, allows them to fix their credit, and builds long-term societal trust in our institution.
Soft ethics fills the gap. It shifts the corporate mindset from reactive risk management, how do we avoid a lawsuit, to proactive value creation. How do we design this technology to actually benefit the people using it?
And this leads us to the pinnacle of Fluharty's governance theory. If we want soft ethics to actually work at scale, we can't just rely on individual software engineers to have daily moral epiphanies.
No, that's not sustainable.
We have to design the system itself to support ethical behavior. He calls this infraethics, or ethical infrastructure.
Infraethics. This is where we bridge the gap between abstract philosophy and actual design. Because we usually think of ethics as a heavy personal burden, right? When I face a moral choice, I have to stop, agonize over the options, consult my conscience, and force myself to do the hard, correct thing.
But human willpower is finite. If doing the right thing in the digital world is always a grueling uphill battle, most people will eventually just take the path of least resistance. Infraethics is the concept of designing the physical, social, and digital environment, the envelope, so that the path of least resistance naturally leads to the ethical choice. It is the infrastructure that facilitates fair play.
Let's use a physical analogy. If a city government wants its citizens to recycle, they could spend millions of dollars on a marketing campaign lecturing people about the moral philosophy of environmentalism, hoping people will feel guilty enough to carry their empty bottles all the way home to recycle them.
That is relying purely on personal ethics, and it has a very low success rate.
The alternative is building an infraethics. You simply place a clearly labeled, brightly colored recycling bin right next to every single trash can in the city. You don't lecture the citizens, you just change the infrastructure of the environment so that doing the ethical thing, recycling, is just as frictionless and effortless as throwing it in the trash.
You build an environment that makes doing the right thing easy and doing the wrong thing harder. Now, translate that to the Infosphere. Infraethics means designing digital platforms that naturally prioritize truth and nuanced discussion over viral outrage. It means engineering AI architectures that default to maximum user privacy and data encryption, rather than requiring the user to navigate a labyrinth of 50 confusing settings menus just to stop their data from being sold.
It means building an envelope where the mindless agency of the algorithms is pointed towards serving human autonomy, rather than exploiting human psychological vulnerabilities for ad revenue.
Exactly. So if we accept that governance is the main challenge, and we agree that we need soft ethics and infraethics acting as the steering wheel and the rules of the road, the final, most important question remains, where exactly are we driving this ship? What is the actual destination we are aiming for in this mature information society?
Because without a destination, governance is just endless crisis management. We would just be playing whack-a-mole, patching holes in a sinking ship, trying to mitigate the worst of the algorithmic injustice until the planet eventually becomes uninhabitable anyway.
Flaherty provides a very clear, overarching destination for the 21st century. He calls it the Human Project, which he defines as the unbreakable alliance of the green and the blue.
The Green and the Blue Alliance. This is the synthesis of everything we've talked about today. Let's break down these two colors because it's a powerful framing for the future. Let's start with the blue.
The blue represents the entirety of our technological capabilities in the information age. It is digital innovation, artificial intelligence, massive data centers, predictive algorithms, the Internet of Things, the electric blue light of our screens. It is the vast reservoir of non-intelligent machine agency that we have created.
And the green represents all of our habitats.
Yeah.
And it's crucial to point out that Flaherty doesn't just mean biological ecology. He doesn't just mean planting trees and saving the oceans, although that is the foundation.
Right.
By green, he means all the environments where human beings flourish. It includes our urban environments, our social structures, our economic systems, our legal frameworks, and our political realities.
Flaherty argues that the defining mission of our time, the only strategy that guarantees our survival and flourishing, must be the absolute marriage of the green and the blue. We must unite human flourishing and ecological sustainability with digital innovation.
We have to use the blue to save the green.
Precisely. We must leverage the immense, tireless power of algorithms and digital agency to fundamentally change how our civilization operates. The overarching goal is to use the digital to do more with less.
Okay.
We need to aim the power of AI directly at solving the climate crisis. We need smart algorithms optimizing our global energy grids to seamlessly integrate renewable sources. We need digital tracking to create a true circular economy where physical waste is minimized because every material is tracked, recycled, and repurposed with algorithmic efficiency.
So this is a massive departure from traditional corporate social responsibility. It's not about a massive tech company running incredibly toxic, energy-hungry server farms to mine user data, and then throwing a fraction of a % of their profits at a tree planting charity just to look good. It's not about putting a green cherry on top of a toxic consumerist cake.
No, the green and the blue is the cake. The core business model itself, the fundamental operating system of the economy, must be designed from the ground up to heal the environment and elevate society using digital efficiency.
This requires a massive philosophical shift in how we view capitalism itself, doesn't it?
It does. Flaherty points out that the 20th century model of consumer capitalism is based on a linear, highly destructive process. We extract physical resources from the earth, we manufacture physical goods, we consume them quickly, and we throw them into a landfill. That model is fundamentally incompatible with the finite physical limits of the green habitat.
But the online society offers an alternative. We can shift toward what Flaherty calls a capitalism of care.
Because in a mature information society, value is increasingly immaterial. We don't need to infinitely extract physical resources to generate wealth and well-being. We can generate massive value through digital ecosystems, software services, experiences, and relational networks. A capitalism of care is an economy focused on maintaining, repairing, and enriching our shared habitats, both digital and physical, rather than just blindly producing disposable physical goods.
The Green and Blue Alliance gives our digital ethics a concrete destination. It tells us why we need to govern AI. We aren't governing AI just to stop it from turning into a Terminator. We are governing it, utilizing soft ethics and infra ethics so that we can harness its incredible agency to build a sustainable, flourishing home for humanity.
It completely shifts our cultural posture. We move away from a posture of fear hiding from the ghosts of the singularity, paralyzed by the potential downsides of technology, and we move into a posture of profound, purposeful responsibility. We've built the most powerful tool in the history of our species. The question is no longer, will it destroy us? The question is, what kind of world are we going to build with it?
Okay, let's take a breath and briefly retrace the journey we've been on today for you, the listener, because we have covered immense ground. We started by completely busting the Hollywood myth of the sentient AI takeover. We established that the defining feature of our digital tools is the complete divorce between highly successful problem-solving agency and actual conscious intelligence.
And once we recognized that the algorithms are fundamentally mindless, we explored how our society is enveloping our physical and social worlds. We are re-engineering the chaotic reality of cities, workplaces, and homes to accommodate and simplify life for these zero-intelligence systems.
Which exposed the real sharks swimming in the water of our on-life existence. Not a sci-fi apocalypse, but the systemic, quiet risks of losing our human autonomy through relentless algorithmic nudging, the laundering of historical bias through black box justice systems, the polarizing demands of an automated job market, and the tragic opportunity cost of underusing technology in medicine and science out of misplaced fear.
And finally, we arrived at the necessary solution. The era of focusing solely on raw technological innovation is over. We must commit to robust, proactive digital governance. We need an infra-ethics that goes far beyond the reactive boundaries of the law, utilizing soft ethics to guide the Green and Blue Alliance, leveraging the immense power of digital agency to foster a sustainable, circular, and caring human project.
Why does all of this deeply philosophical theory matter to you on a Tuesday morning? Because every single time you interact with a smart device, every time you send a resume into the void of a job portal, every time you walk through a sensor-laden city intersection or scroll through a perfectly curated feed of information, you are actively participating in this enveloped infosphere. You are swimming in the brackish water of the Onlife.
And your active awareness of these invisible architectures is the absolute first step toward demanding better governance. You cannot demand that a company practice soft ethics, and you cannot demand a society build an ethical infrastructure if you don't even realize you are living inside an envelope designed for the convenience of machines.
Which brings me to a final, somewhat provocative thought for you to mull over as we close out this deep dive. We've talked extensively about the ultimate goal of building a perfect infra-ethics. We want to design a beautifully engineered digital and physical environment where the algorithms effortlessly, frictionlessly nudge us toward environmentally sound and socially just behaviors. But if we're entirely successful in building that perfectly governed environment, do we risk creating a gilded cage?
It's a profound, almost paradoxical question. If doing the right thing becomes completely automated and requires absolutely zero effort because the environment around us is perfectly engineered to make us behave well,
do we eventually lose our own moral muscles? Think about physical muscles. If you live in an environment with zero gravity, your muscles atrophy. If we live in an ethical environment with zero moral friction, where we never have to struggle with temptation, where we never have to consciously fight our own biases to make the hard, correct choice because the algorithm just makes the correct choice the easiest one, do we lose the very human capacity to consciously choose the good?
If the envelope makes us perfectly, effortlessly well-behaved, are we still truly autonomous moral agents? Or have we just become another predictable, managed component in the machine's perfectly functioning environment?
It turns out the most urgent question of the 21st century isn't whether the dishwasher will wake up, become sentient, and decide to conquer the world. The question is whether humanity, lulled by the convenience of the algorithm, will eventually forget how to be anything other than the dirty plates waiting to be processed. Until next time, stay curious and pay attention to the envelope around you.